The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. Want the real story behind the sound bites and headlines? Let's find the facts. Remember, it's not a conspiracy theory if it's the truth. You are not paranoid or confused. You just need to know.
And welcome, everybody. It's a new week and a new edition of Everything You Need to Know. I'm Keefer, glad to be with you. Hope you had a wonderful week past. And we are moving on to getting close to football season, so that's always a big deal. I have some information for you on that coming up a little bit later. I want to start off today with a subject that you maybe don't need to know, but it's something that is important to me, and I want you to know. I want the world to know, because this day is a very significant one for me every year, and particularly on the day it happened. This is the date 35 years ago when the ultimate life-changing event occurred for Keefer. And it was something I'd like to kind of tell you about a little bit now. On that day, I was on hand and witnessed the miraculous event of the birth of my first child. And it was so significant that everything that had happened before that day and everything that's happened every day since pales in comparison to the significance of that particular occasion. Being on hand to watch that whole process, to know, what was involved, but everything that you expected, it dissipates instantly the first second when you look into that tiny face and see him draw his first breath, take his first kind of bewildered glance around. The enormity of that experience is something that I will just carry with me every day. And this is 35 years, hard to believe, since it happened. It's something that I remember having and this is one thing that I'm proud to say. I'm proud of myself for recognizing it at the moment was happening. Remember the line in the great movie Field of Dreams where Burt Lancaster, who's playing Moonlight Graham, the doctor from Minnesota, who had one day in the major leagues. His dream was to be a Major League Baseball player. He had one day. He got to play in the ninth inning, got to go out to right field, never had a ball hit to him. The game ended. He never got a chance to bat. They were going to send him back to the minors, so he decided that he was going to be a doctor instead, because that was probably his true calling. And he says to Kevin Costner, of course, the lead character, in recounting the disappointment, I guess you could call it, of being so close. He did get to take the field, but he never got to base. That was my dream, to bat in the major leagues. And he said a line that's always stayed with me, and I think about it every time I think about this day. He said, he says, at that time, I thought to myself, and I think everybody thinks there'll be other days. He goes, that was the day. And I'm really proud to say that as that was happening, I had that perspective. I had that instant perception of again being there for the very first glimpse of my son, and had a full understanding of really what it meant. And also, I got to give props to, and sadly that she's now my ex-wife, but we're still very close. And the complete feeling of just awe and amazement and gratitude and appreciation. I can rattle off all kinds of things, but to watch what she did to make the miracle of birth happen, and the pain and the commitment and the fortitude that it requires is just unbelievable. And I have such fond memories of that first experience of holding my son and looking at her, she had just gone through such a long ordeal and so difficult, to see her smiling and to see his little face. What a great experience. And the really good news is that just a little bit coming up on 2 years now, my son Case had that same experience that I had with the birth of his new son, his first child, who's my first grandson. And they don't have high expectations for him. His name is King Keefer. So hopefully he'll live up to that pretty much pressure billing. But my son is experiencing the same things now, and it gives me kind of a chance to relive some of the fondest memories of my life by watching his joy and the experience of raising his first boy and having been there like I was for that miraculous event. So happy birthday to Case Keefer. I never would have believed that moment 35 years ago when I witnessed that event that I could possibly, love my son any more than I was going to that very first moment. But I would have been completely wrong, because every day he's been alive, I've been so proud to be his dad. He's brought me nothing but joy and amazement, and every subsequent day, that feeling just grows more and more. So happy birthday to Case. Living out in Las Vegas, going to be out there again in another couple of weeks, and really looking forward to doing that and celebrating King's second birthday. But this is a memorable day for me, and thank you for letting me share that with all of you. Hopefully that triggered some emotions in all the dads out there that have had the similar experience, and the amazing situation to have witnessed such a miraculous event. Case is an accomplished, exemplary human being. He's a great husband and father, and by the grace of God, he's my son. So I'm trying to keep it together here as I open the show, but it was important to me, and I hope you. I appreciate you all bearing with me so I could commemorate probably August 8th, the most significant day of my entire life. Now, don't get disappointed if you turned in for some political discussion. I have a little bit of that today, too. I do want to do some shameless promotion real quick before we get into that. I mentioned football season is right around the corner. We are so excited to have an array of programs that are going to, I hope, enhance your enjoyment of the upcoming season. Recently was in Las Vegas to shoot a lot of footage and a lot of episode segments, once again with Case Keefer and my youngest son, Clade, who is our producer, director, technical genius. So getting to collaborate with both of my boys, and we're going to have a brand new show, and it will be on the lineup on the Tony Kurre Radio Network. And Tony Kurre Radio, really looking forward to introducing on August the 26th, the first edition on Tony Kurre Radio of Wanna Bet. It's going to be a great show every week. We're going to talk about all aspects of football investment, I guess you could call it. But Case has become one of the foremost experts in the country on the subject, and we're going to have fantastic information for you every single week of the season, as well as the best picks. He'll have his NFL. He's one of the top ranked, and this is not just a claim from pulling it out of the air. He is certified. There's several different tracking mechanisms in sports betting that follow all of the picks from all of the experts that do that for a living. Case is the editor, the sports editor for the Las Vegas Sun in Nevada, and has ranked in the top 5 3 of the past 4 years for winners against the spread in the NFL. So he's one of the foremost experts. You don't have to call an 800 number. You don't have to pay any money. We're going to give you that information right here on Tony Kurre Radio and on WTTO Channel 21 every week. Case will have his picks on the NFL and other college action around the country, where my focus in my segment each week will be on the SEC. We're getting ready for the Southeastern Conference, where it just matters more is their slogan. And that's certainly true as we get ready to crank up another season. So excited to make that announcement. Want to bet coming up at the end of this month right here on Tony Kurre Radio. And we are looking forward to bringing you that. And I mentioned it was a family affair. We've also got a great promotional video that we kind of got by accident, starring the aforementioned King Keefer at the tender age of not quite 2 years old. I think you'll really enjoy that promotion for the show as well. So enough of Kip Keefer news. Let's get on to some business at hand here that I really feel it's important that I address. 2 weeks ago on Need to Know here with Terry Quillian on board that particular episode, she and I talked about a variety of subjects, but one of the ones we focused on was Democrats that were kind of taking a stand and kind of taking a sensible approach to things, not just looking at opportunities to kind of advance the agenda, but doing things that really were the intention of our founders. And that basically was to be a representative of their constituents that have put them in these congressional positions. And in that show, I actually effusively praised Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia. Now, Joe Manchin has been demonized and kind of made the Snidely Whiplash villain through the first year and a half of the Biden administration for basically taking a stand against more excessive, crazy spending and excessive taxation, that was really the agenda of this administration coming in and has widespread support from Congress. Manchin was kind of the guy, along with Kristen Sinema, the senator from Arizona, kind of standing that off a little bit, basically saying, look, we're in an economic downturn. We've got a lot of issues here. And it is economics 101, folks, that in a situation where the gross national product is not expanding, not growing, we've had consecutive quarters of decline, which indicates a recession. The economy is in a bad way at the moment. The prices are skyrocketing. Inflation is the highest it's been in 50 years. This is a real tough time for the country right now. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and we don't need to get into all the politics of it, but a lot of it's by design. And Joe Manchin had taken a stand and said, look, in an economic downturn, we can't be talking about this, because remember the original bill proposed was Build Back Better. The idea was, of course, to infuse all kinds of money into all these programs and address the climate change concern and there a lot of the superficial things. And again, climate change is a subject that we can have 10 consecutive programs on and talk about, all the facts and all of the fallacies, and examine the arguments on both sides. We won't get into that today, but I will say that you have to kind of take a step back and understand that this is a major device, not to say that it's not something to it, but this is something that's been seized upon by people that want the power and control of the greatest growth enterprise in the history of the planet, the United States federal government. because this is an opportunity to massively expand that government. And again, I used the Ronald Reagan quote a couple of weeks ago. He said it back in the 80s. America is a country with a government. It can never be the other way around. And that is undeniably the intention of a lot of people that are driving this bus right now. So back to Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin had taken a stand, and I said on the show 2 weeks ago that, the main reason that I applaud Joe Manchin isn't so much for the philosophical reasons of the stand he's taking. It was the fact that he was actually one of the few people in Washington that were really doing what they are sent there to do, and that is represent their constituents. What Joe Manchin's personal opinions or political motivations that were driving his decision making were, to me, it looked like he was setting aside all of that partisan nonsense to represent the people of West Virginia. This is a state that supported former President Trump in the election with a 71% margin. It's a state that has gone dramatically to the right side of the measure in the last few decades. And Joe Manchin, despite being a Democrat, is a homegrown guy, a hero in West Virginia, a person that comes, ironically, from a kind of a humble background. I think his father was ran some kind of service business. I know his grandfather ran a store. He was the boyhood best friend of Nick Saban, who all of us have heard of here in Alabama. And Joe Manchin was just a West Virginia guy, and he made a lot of his fortune being a broker in the coal business, which of course is the backbone of the West Virginia economy. So Joe Manchin just basically said, hey, I don't care if it's, if the party really wants this. This is not the idea of representative government. Joe Manchin, and I praised him for it on the show, was standing up for the desires of the constituents of the people he represented, and that's the people of West Virginia. Basically, just days after that program, in secret meetings with the president of the Senate, Chuck Schumer, from New York, who has got an extreme leftist agenda, Joe Manchin basically caved for whatever reason. And I don't have any information on this. I don't know what's in it for Joe Manchin. I don't know what could have caused such an abrupt about face. But a guy who said publicly time after time after time, in a recession, in an economic downturn, you do not do two things: increase spending and increase taxation. And all of a sudden, they announced jointly that they have reached an agreement to do just that. And yesterday, the bill, despite like 29 votes and amendments, and it got drawn out on a Sunday, they were in such a hurry to get this thing ramrodded through without any kind of problems, that the United States Senate passed a bill yesterday, $761 billion, that's with a B, $761 billion, basically earmarked for this transition to renewable energy, and also funding for all kinds of agencies, including the EPA, to kind of bolster their strength. They lost this is the irony of the situation too. The state of West Virginia sued the EPA, and that suit lingered for a long time until this recent Supreme Court session. And the Supreme Court rendered a decision that Congress had not given the EPA the authority to impose, just on their own volition, all of these regulations and restrictions that were hampering the coal industry in West Virginia. Now, again, remember, Joe Manchin made a living, made a fortune as in the coal, is a representative of the coal industry in West Virginia. So they just won that lawsuit, which was a big victory for his state. Now he turns around and supports this legislation, which empowers the EPA to have a lot more authority to expand their operations. And really, it's a blatant attempt in this bill to, basically usurp the authority of the United States Supreme Court, who made a constitutional ruling that the EPA should not be authorized to do that. Now, Manchin denies this gives the EPA any more power, but any common sense look at it, it certainly appears to be the case. Of course, the renewable energy situation, that's another subject altogether. Right now, and Joe Biden said it in the presidential campaign, we are out to basically rid ourselves of the fossil fuel industry. Well, you can't make that turn on a dime. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. And that's why they're not sympathetic to the fact that gas prices have skyrocketed. Although now they're saying gas prices have come down. Well, that's great. Since they had more than doubled, yeah, they've come down, but they're still double now of what they were just a little bit over a year ago. And that adjustment is because people can't afford to drive, and that's what they're driving. Well, that's not, pun intended, I guess. That's what they're driving at, is trying to reduce, make the cost so much that people don't take arbitrary trips or drive unnecessarily. Again, anybody who actually believes that, and I heard some person making a speech the other day talking about, this is going to have great impact, this bill, because it's going to, limit terrible tragedies in terms of weather and natural phenomenon. Folks, if you think for 1 second that anything that's being done here with this excessive spending of $761 billion is going to negate hurricanes and limit fires and all the natural phenomenons we see, it's just a delusional idea. It's really absurd. A planet that's been here 4.5 billion years has been this negatively impacted with 140 years of industrialization. Think about that. 140 years out of 4.5 billion. We're just a blip on the radar. The planet may be evolving, maybe it's heating up, but I'm sure that carbon emissions are not a helpful component to that. But this planet, I don't believe, and you'll have to really try to convince me otherwise, that this planet is influenced at all by what man does. Maybe it's not a positive contribution at this point, but anybody that gets talked into the fact that making these changes and going to this renewable energy idea and not being an energy independent nation like we were when Biden took over is anything positive. It's just not. The other irony of this thing is they are calling it, and this is a perfect example of what I've been talking about for a while, this hard left progressive bunch operates with a theory of what I call reverse reality. As absurd as it might be, they name things, they theme things, the complete opposite of what the sensible common, I should have said common sense alternative is. Just like when Joe Biden said during the campaign, we believe in truth, not facts. Well, think about that comment. What is truth based on? It's based on facts. So this is unbelievable. The Inflation Reduction Act. That's what passed in Congress yesterday. The Inflation Reduction Act. In a recession, in an economic downturn, pumping more money into the economy that you don't have, spending more money that you don't have. only exacerbates the problem. It is the Inflation Acceleration Act, in truth, and there's no way you can deny that that is the case. Inflation reduction is just an absurd title for this thing. $761 billion. All right, picture a $100 bill with the less than pleasing image of Ben Franklin. You know, Ben was an amazingly accomplished guy, a great American, but boy, he was a homely character. But if you got a lot of hundreds, you know, Ben's face grows on you. Anyway, picture a $100 bill and $761 billion. That is 716 million $100 bills. Think about that. This is money that's just it's just such an excessive amount. It's just such an amazing about face from Joe Manchin. And I use the old Casey at the Bat poem in a recent tweet that there's no joy in USAville because mighty Joe Biden, or not Joe Biden, mighty Joe Manchin has sold out. Anyway, that's my opinion on the Inflation Reduction Bill. You don't reduce inflation by further devaluing your currency. And another component of that, of course, is the increase in corporate taxation. Well, guess what happens in that situation? Prices go higher because corporations are not going to sell their products at the same rate and be taxed at a higher level. That increase is going to be passed on to you. And I apologize for some interfering noise in the background. But just think about it in those terms. This is nothing to do with reducing inflation. It is just an accelerant. That's all the time we have. I really enjoy every week visiting with all of you here on Need to Know. I hope you have a fantastic week. All the best to all of you and your family. Thank you to the Tony Kurre radio station. I always call it network because it is a network, but Tony Kurre Radio for having us on every week. And we will look forward to visiting with you again on Need to Know.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.